Our speaker today, we are so excited because she is one of our own, Frances Rivera, who is located in Miami, Florida in the US. And Frances is a territory sales manager for Cabrina and Dakine with Adventure Sports there in Miami. She's also a kiteboarding instructor and examiner. And she's, like I said, our own board co-chair for the collective. She is an Adidas model now. They have asked her, and that's the picture you see there with her looking all sharp in her black and white Adidas gear. And she's an Army veteran. And she's going to tell you a story today about her experience in the Army and since then. And her talk today is very inspirational because it's all around letting passion lead you and not fear. And of course, that's something that at various times in our lives, we all need to remember. And so you'll see in the pictures here of Frances, she certainly doesn't let fear hold her back. She is not only a badass woman kiter, but she's a rock climber. She's done skydiving. She's amazing. She does a variety of nonprofit kiteboarding camps for veterans and wounded warriors like herself. And she always is looking to empower others through the sport of kiteboarding. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Frances. It's all yours.
Hi, everyone. First off, I want to thank the Women's Kiteboarding Collective for doing these virtual meetings and having us all together from all around the globe. And also thank you for joining us today. So I guess I will start with my beginnings in kiting. I started in 2007, back when the kites, had little D-power and mostly sea kites and, a little bit more sketchy than they are these days. And what caught my eye, I'm from Puerto Rico. My background, back then when I was a teenager, I was a skateboarder and will surf, small waves and whatnot. And one day on the beach, I saw some people just, flying 20, 30 feet in the air. And I was just enamored and in awe, just like, oh, wow, what is this? This looks so amazing. I need to try it. And, talked to the locals and decided to do it. I started and I learned in a beach called Ocean Park in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's a wavy spot, deep water. And, not the most easy circumstances to learn, not the most ideal, but that's where I came from. And I remember back in the day, as I got proficient at it, I just be in the beach and just think to myself how amazing it would be to make a life, a career out of kiting. It's so relieving, and for me, it's just kind of like yoga. And it was kind of like a dream that I never thought it would be accomplishable. Back then, I was starting to just, lay out my life and see what I wanted to do for the rest of it. And I decided in 2009 to join the U.S. military, the branch of the Army. I became a combat medic. And, I thought that was going to be it. I was going to be in it for 20 years. And then I was just going to retire, just move into something else, maybe be a nurse or whatnot. And in 2011, well, you want to say, you never know what's going to happen. I got in a car accident. I had in my left leg a compound fracture, just multiple fractures in between my tibia and the fibula. And they did surgeries, but ended up having compartment syndrome from something that should have been an ER visit and getting discharged in a couple of days and recover in about 6 months. Then all of a sudden, it turned out that I was in the hospital for a month and a half. And it went from you'll recover, quickly and get back to your life to, well, now I went through one surgery, went through another, and a third and a fourth. And, when you're in a hospital, it just time passes differently. Usually, you go to emergency room and 8 hours seems like a full day. Well, imagine a month and a half. It definitely felt like 6 months just went by. And throughout this period of time, I thought surgery after surgery, after it was just going to tell me, hey, we were able to get your circulation back to normal and you're going to go home. But that wasn't the case. 8 surgeries later, and my last one, I still, going in it, thought that when I woke up, everything was going to be normal and they would tell me a miracle happened. Well, I woke up and now it's legless. Just wake up in the hospital bed and having a nurse next to me holding my hands, and all of a sudden I'm missing half of my left leg. And being alone in the hospital, that was quite a terrifying story. And yeah, at that point was the first period of my life that I completely felt hopelessness. There's no words that can describe the amount of just emptiness that you can feel when you go through like certain type of trauma. And that was my first shock as an adult, experiencing something like that. I do remember one of my first questions as an amputee while I was in the hospital, just recovering from, the stitching and like just the residual limb, was asking the doctors, when can I go kiteboarding again? And their answer was, maybe you want to stop kiteboarding and doing something more normal, slow down, take it easy. And I didn't like that answer. I was really stubborn in my head, thinking that I will figure out a way on how to get back into the kite. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but I will get back into it. And well, so I did. But anyways, that was the chapter, that was the beginning of a new reality. And a big part on how and why I've been able to always push forward. First off, I don't like being told no. And second, I had the blessing of having a group of people around me that pushed me to keep on going forward. And as well as my attitude, they would not take no for an answer. When you go through something as traumatic as that, or as anything, depression, a breakup or anything, it definitely puts a weight on your mind and your perception of yourself. And the reality is, in your mind, a lot of times you just feel like giving up. And I had met this lady in Puerto Rico some years before that just so happened to have my same birth date, December 21st. And that's how we connected. And now she's what I call my stepmom. She called me throughout the whole time that I was in bed recuperating. It was 4 months after the amputation, and she would never stop calling me. And I would just hang up on her. I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to know what the next steps will be. I was just devastated. I was in a deep hole. And she's like, I'm gonna fly you to New York, and we're gonna find you the best prosthetics company in the world, and you're gonna get up and you're gonna keep on going. And after a couple of weeks of her calling me pretty much every day, I was just like, okay, I give in. What is this? What do we have to know? Let's just get this over with, woman. And I flew to New York, and I went to a company called A Step Ahead Prosthetics. And unless you're an amputee, I mean, you don't know everything that goes behind, like getting a leg and all the components and like all the different legs that there is. If you want to go dancing, there's one for it. If you want to go climbing, there's one for it. If you want to have one that looks like a real leg, there's one thing for everything. However, this was 2011, so back then they hadn't made a kiteboarding leg yet. So I was the first experiment for a kiteboarding leg, and it wasn't always easy, and it wasn't happy. The first legs, when I tried to get in the water in New York, they would just like flip all over the place because they were trying to like have flexible joints, and I would just be riding in Long Island, and all of a sudden trying to go in between sailboats, and the leg would just go like this, and I'm trying not to crash the kite going in between sailboats in cold ass water, and I'm just like, oh my God, what is this? What am I doing? But after lots of trials, we got something that worked. But that wasn't even, most of the challenges. The bigger challenge was having to relearn everything, like literally going from being a 21-year-old adult to 21, 22 to now relearning how to walk. The first time they put a prosthetic leg on me, the pressure on it was such a shock that I stood up and gave 2 steps and I fainted and just collapsed, like completely blackout. That was like my first steps after becoming an amputee. And then there was thing of like, you cannot eat pizza because then you can gain like 10 pounds and then from one day to the other, and because of all the sodium, and now your leg doesn't fit. So you had to just, all right, so I have to adjust my diet as well. And, it was everything, every little step there was all these challenges, from just walking, being able to do long distance walks to just now walking for minutes. Same thing with the kiting. I literally felt like I was a baby again. And I can say that I see how it's so challenging for individuals to overcome challenges, just because it retraces you so much that it's just so exhausting. But pushing forward is the better choice always. So for kiting, when finally you figure out a leg that actually worked, then there was all these challenges besides it. I went from being an advanced rider, I was doing kite loops and big jumps with loops and whatnot when I had 2 legs on hook tricks, to now, if I rode for 30 minutes, that was a win. Same thing as like riding for, the advantage of kiting is you have the harness, so you can ride for long periods of time. And I went from riding from hours to now, if I had a 30-minute session, that was a win. And, the feeling of burden of like having people around to help me out, not feeling fully independent. And I had to learn to push those emotions aside and take everything day by day and deal with it in that way, so it would not be such an overwhelming reaction. And by having this attitude and by just having that stubbornness of not letting those overpowering emotions take over my mind and take over my body, I relearned how to live my life day by day and slowly regain those skills. Now, the funny thing about that is, learning what works and doesn't when you're kiting. In the beginning, over my whole period of time as an amputee, I've lost 5 legs in the ocean. And there's a funny one. I was in Puerto Rico once and lost one. I was doing a kite loop, and I had, at this time, I was trying to like put a leash over the prosthesis and into a harness, so in case I lose it, it would just stay. It didn't. It bent the leash metal outwards. It sank in the ocean. And then 5 years later, when I was here in Miami, I get a call from a friend saying, "We found your leg." And I was like, "What?" And she sends me a picture, and the leg at this point is a coral, is reef. Fish definitely lived on it. And now it's just like a sculpture full of sand and reef, and just came back. And that's one of the funny ones. There was a couple of times in the beginning when they were trying to figure out what worked and what didn't for kiting, that I would just be riding, and the components that will go from the prosthesis into the mechanics that make the leg, I will be just riding and do a jump, and all of a sudden that would just detach, and that sinks. And now I have half a prosthetic and no way to get that piece back. So I got yelled a lot when the prosthetic company was trying to figure out like what would work for kiting and what didn't. But that's all part of the experience. Over time, I learned one thing: duct tape fixes everything. I literally duct tape everything from my sleeve all the way up to my thigh, just because as far as everything I tried, that's the only thing that has helped. So I'm always with a roll or 2 or 3 duct tape in my luggage. All right, so during that period of time, I tried to remain in the military. It was what I envisioned as a teenager. That was my life plan. And inevitably, because of the job that I had as a combat medic and their criteria, I ended up getting medically discharged from the Army. At that point, a lot of self-doubt went out into me as a person, because I felt lost. I felt that the purpose that I believed that I would have as a human, that my goal in life was gone. And plus, now realizing that I was a disabled woman was not an easy reality check, and something that I had to deal with myself and with my mind. Inevitably, for a long period of time, I did have depression, and I lost my sense of direction. I decided when the life in the military was no longer, from being a medic, it would translate well into getting into nursing, and maybe I could share my experiences with others. I wanted to be a trauma nurse, and I decided to start pursuing a degree in that field. Pursuing that definitely helped out regaining my confidence and helped out with the adapting stage. And it's that the schedule of having to keep busy and following things, it helped out with my mind and the clutter behind it. At the same time I was doing my nursing degree, I became a kiteboarding instructor. I decided that it was a great opportunity to teach others the sport. And this was the door that opened, the path that has led to where I'm at today. Meeting people every day in a highly touristy area. It was really good for the mind. It kept me like very motivated. And also, pushing my body more than I thought it was capable of. 6-hour days, sometimes 4 to 5 days a week. It definitely was a challenging, but in many ways, it was very healing to my self-perception, as well for my stamina. It's a really good workout. I was in really good shape back then. And my ability to do tricks and be able to ride for longer periods of times also expanded. Back then, people would tell me that I should work on, my social media and, like expanding, show other people what I go through in hopes to help others. But when I look back to that time, I was not ready mentally to approach that. Further on down the line, it was something that I decided to work on. But back then, what I was doing, becoming a kiteboarding instructor, was what I needed to heal and to improve to the point where I'm at today. That was when I was a kiteboarding instructor down in Puerto Rico. Was the first time I introduced veterans into the sport of kiteboarding. I had the opportunity, and I knew other veterans that were, discharged from the military for medical reasons, and I would gather them in the beach in Puerto Rico and teach them how to, not full kiteboarding lessons, but introduction with the trainer kite and whatnot. And that was my first taste of finding something that I could do to pay it forward to others, even when my time in the service was done. And then another, deception happened in my life. The relationship that I had in Puerto Rico, the guy that I thought it was the love of my life back then, we broke up. And back then, I decided I'm leaving everything, I'm dropping it all, and I'm just gonna move to the States and figure it out. I was gonna just use my kiteboarding skills and hopefully work in yachts, and that was it. And from one day to another, in less than a week, I literally got rid of everything, quit my instructor job, and just moved out to Miami with no plan. That was it, just a thought. And I did it. I did work in yachts for about 3 months, and I was teaching private families how to kiteboard, plus being deckhand and all the jobs and whatnot. And in 2015, I reached out to Cabrina. And back then, the VP of sales for the Americas, Todd Grow, and I was asking for a sponsorship. I wanted a deal on some kites so I could get back in the water, have my own stuff, and keep on doing what I loved. And his response back was, "Well, I can offer you a job." And I was like, "Well, okay." And I took it. Months in, I started approaching different veteran groups. To start doing clinics, because the fulfillment it gave me from the little taste I got in Puerto Rico was something that, if I've been through trauma and I've gone through so much, and I'd be able to slowly overcome it and find passion into being in nature, and it's so healing to me. Maybe if I do that for others, it can give them, just even if it's just a little taste of it, and get them out of a bad day or a cloudy mind or any traumatic circumstance they might be going through. One good thing about Cabrina is that they always allow me to do clinics and go around the East Coast throughout the years, and allow me to share my passion with others, and teach anyone, whether they are, having TBI, traumatic brain injuries, or they're missing a limb, all the way to wheelchair bounds, what the sport is about, and how tremendous it is just to be out in nature and just becoming part of it. Since then, thanks to all these opportunities, and thanks to always trying to reach out for more, from reaching out to veteran groups, I decided to work. It was time to work on my exposure through social media, and reach out to more people. Let the world know that no matter what you go through, there's ways to see beauty in the world. There's ways to be out in nature and just feel that void and find yourself. And thanks to this, in 2020, I got in a documentary that ended up in the Miami Film Festival and won the Toyota Toyota Viewers Award for the whole film festival. And I've had also the opportunities to be in local newspapers, in Kiteboarding magazine, in Kite World, as well as I kite surf. And something that I never thought possible, and I gave it a shot because trying and failing is better than just giving up and not trying at all, was opening a portfolio to work with different modeling, commercials and whatnot. And first door that opened thanks to Miami-Dade Disability Services was a gig for Facebook. And it has gone on to visit Florida, celebrity cruises, and most recently Adidas. Here I am in my 30s and becoming an Adidas model. So the journey has been long, and who would thought that from trauma and such an event that could be so devastating, just being with the right person around, having the right attitude and not letting yourself go, you can accomplish anything that you put your mind and yourself into, and a little bit of luck. And as a conclusion, I would have to say that our mind is our biggest obstacle, and we are our biggest judge. That attitude is everything to overcome big challenges. The accepting change and letting go of the past is crucial. You have to live in the moment and accept what reality is, because the past is gone and the present is a gift. And having a tight circle of people around you that want the best for you is crucial. My stepmom, when she took me to New York, there was an Adidas ad as we were going to the city. And it was a Nike ad. And she told me, you will be that person someday. It wasn't Nike, it ended up being Adidas. But back then I was like, this woman is crazy. And look at where life takes you sometimes, and look at where I ended up today. So never doubt it and always go forward. And like I said before, trying and failing is better than not trying or giving up entirely. By giving up, by not trying, you will always have to live with the what if. And by not trying, you're automatically failing. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and I hope to see you all in the water.